Hey growers, if you watched the last video, you saw that we were out in the field collecting sap. Now I've got my jug for maple syrup ready, but I don't know how to turn the sap into maple syrup. So what we're going to do is try to head through the portal again. I think I found the person who's going to show us exactly how to do this whole process. Wow, looks like we made it. This is amazing. Here's the quintessential New Hampshire, New England sugar shack. Just from the outside, this looks like it's going to be a really interesting look into how maple syrup is made. I thought we'd just find somebody here with a wood stove and a big cauldron of sap on it, stirring it and making maple syrup. I think this is going to be really intriguing. A complex process that most of us take for granted and being very simple. So I hear some things running. Let's go in and see what we can find out. The door was open. I hear you're the person to come see. I'm David.
Yes, I am. I'm Josh.
And
nice to meet you.
I did a video on collecting maple sap, and I've never done this before. So I've got a bucket of sap, and they said you're the person to tell me how I turn it into maple syrup.
That's right, I can.
So it looks like you have something going here. So why don't you just do your work, and I'll ask you some questions as we go.
Sounds good.
That's all right.
Sounds
all
good.
right. So I'll let you take the sap. I'll set my bottle here.
So this is sap that I collected. And now I'm going to put it right inside the evaporator.
So you obviously collect a lot of sap. You collect out in Barrington, I hear.
Yes, we collect 1,000 to 1,500 gallons of sap a day.
A day?
Yes.
Holy moly, that's a lot of sap. And the sap when you get the sap, where does it go? Because it's not in here, obviously.
Well, no, it goes to a couple of tanks I have outside.
So there's tanks outside.
And I can show those to you later.
Okay.
But right now, that sap has been concentrated. So earlier today, I had 1,200 gallons of sap, and I'm going to end up boiling about 100 to 200 gallons of it, and that's in that tank up there.
So the sap is up in the tank, up in the corner.
Yes, it is. Yep.
And then this whole rig is called what?
That right there is called an evaporator.
This is an evaporator. Okay. I see that there's liquid in here. What is this in here?
So that is stuff that is close to syrup.
It's
not quite syrup yet, but it's pretty close.
So is there sap in back of this here? Is there sap under this hood?
Yeah, so the evaporators are made up of two pans. You have your flue pan in the back, you have your syrup pan in the front. And your flue pan has flues in it. So the bottom of the pan is corrugated. And 75% of your evaporation happens in the back, in your back pan. The front pan is where it finishes. It's called your finish pan or your syrup pan.
How does it get from the back tank into the front tank?
So well, start to where how does it even get into the evaporator first?
That's a good question.
So right now, all that sap is sitting inside that upper. It's called your head tank.
Yep. Okay.
And it's piped into the evaporator. Now
into a tank here.
No. So it goes
up into the top.
It goes into here first.
Yep.
And this right here is called your preheater. So the sap goes into the bottom of the preheater. As you're evaporating the liquid off, it creates steam. So as the steam passes through the preheater, it's preheating the sap. So sap is usually about 40 degrees, say this time of year, and it'll preheat it so that it is about 180, 190 degrees. So it goes in the bottom of the preheater, it comes out the top of the preheater. So as it goes into, this is called your float box. Inside of the float box, there's a float. It's a float valve. So at
this box here
has a float inside of it.
Okay.
As you can see, that's
a
float.
yeah. Okay.
So as I boil off liquid, the float valve opens up to maintain a set level.
Yep. Okay.
Like right now, I want that level to be. It'll come once you start boiling, it'll come down a little bit, but it maintains a constant level in your flue pan. So you're putting 16% concentrate into your flue pan. Well, to keep all the
16% sugar content.
sugar content.
Okay.
So raw sap is say 2% sugar.
Okay.
I have 16% concentrate. Now, I do need to put wood in there though, so I can interrupt this part of it.
We're following you around.
Yep. So we're just getting going, so I'm still getting the fire hot.
So you must go through a lot of wood.
Actually, not that much. So we've significantly improved the efficiency of our process by having the reverse osmosis machine outside, which is basically a big water filter, it just removes water. And using that, we can remove about 75 to 90% of the water.
Wow.
So if we had 1,000 gallons of raw sap that we started with, we only actually burn 3 to 4 cord of wood a year.
3 to 4 cord of wood.
That's it.
To produce
To
how many
make
gallons?
400 gallons of syrup.
Wow. That's
Four
amazing.
to 600 gallons, depending on
Wow.
the year. Every year being different. Some years you make more, some years you make less.
So this is just water that you're still getting rid of.
Correct.
And concentrating that syrup.
Correct.
And increasing the sugar level. And I take it these are just hoods to collect
Just to collect the
steam,
Yep.
and you're just venting.
There's a cupola up there, just trying
Yeah.
to get it, just trying to help it get into the cupola better.
Okay.
Just trying to minimize how much steam ends up down here.
It certainly smells good. So with that bucket of sap that I brought in, I actually took a little taste, and it really didn't even taste like sweet water. It didn't have much of a sugar taste at all to it.
No, it really doesn't. So right now, the sap that I brought in today was 1.4% sugar.
And your goal is to get to what?
66.9%.
So you're boiling all the water off to concentrate that sugar to a level of
Exactly.
about 66%. What would honey be as a comparison?
Honey's about 80%, I believe.
Okay. So this is getting hot real fast, and all of this is just from the heat on the
Correct.
in the wood stove.
Yep.
Now, does the firebox? Do you have coils in there that are getting heated, or
Nope.
is it just the
Just
heat
the
from-
fire.
Okay.
So this is a higher efficiency of arch. So this is called your arch, which is your firebox. And what you can hear in the background is the blower. So it's got a high pressure blower, and it's blowing air into the firebox. And the air is coming in from many different directions. This door actually has air in this channel right here and air in this channel down here, with air nozzles blowing air into the fire.
Okay. All right.
It also has air in this upper channel right here too, blowing air into the fire. Another set of those on the other side. And then on the back of the firebox is even more air nozzles.
So all we're doing is, if we have a campfire or a fireplace at home, and the fire isn't going really well, if we take a bellows or blow on the fire, the oxygen makes the fire much hotter. So
Yeah.
you're just increasing the heat and the efficiency of the fire.
Exactly. So that air I described to you, I call it the top air, and that is that's helping the fire to burn the gases that are generated by the wood. There's also air coming in from the very bottom of the firebox, and that's actually what getting the wood to burn. So we're burning both the wood and the gases, which makes the fire much more efficient.
So when we were out at Molly Sanborn's farm, he was telling us that on average you have a boil down rate of about 40 or 50 to 1, where it takes 40 or 50 gallons of sap to get to 1 gallon of maple syrup. Is that what you find here, that ratio?
Yeah, so right now, so you're at the beginning of the season, your sugar content starts out higher. We were at right around 2% sugar
At the beginning of the
at
season?
the beginning of the season. So it's called the Jones rule. It's the rule of 86. So you take your sugar content and divide that by 86. So if our sugar content is 2%, it's 86 divided by 2, gives you 43 to 1.
Okay.
43 gallons of sap to 1 gallon of syrup. Right now, the sap we brought in is 1.4% sugar. So if you take 86 divided by 1.4, gets you to 62 to 1. So right now we're at 62 gallons of sap to 1 gallon of
So
syrup.
what are you putting in here now?
So when you shut down at night and your evaporator cools off, you lose your gradient in your pans. So as you're boiling, you're dumping concentrated sap in there that's a 16% concentrate, and you have syrup over here that's 66.9. So as you're going from here to here, you're getting more concentrated, and you've established a sugar gradient within the pan.
Yep, okay.
Now when you shut down at night, everything intermixes. You lose your gradient.
Yeah, okay.
So you have to reestablish that gradient.
So you're increasing the concentration here to reestablish that gradient?
Exactly. So what I do at the end of the night when I shut down, I draw off syrup. I'll draw off, say, a gallon of syrup. And then I'll set that aside in my pail, and then I'll plug the back. And so when I start off now, like which is what I just did, I take that syrup and I dump it right in my first channel. So now I have syrup here. I open the plug up in the back side, which dilutes it from the flue pan, comes right in. So now I've established a gradient.
So I know some of the people that watched our first video on collecting sap, one of the things we mentioned was how it's a really nice family event to collect some sap on your land.
Yes.
And then make some syrup. So I know what some of the people are looking and saying, I can hear the kids saying, we've got to go out and get one of these units. It's the only way we can make maple syrup.
Yes.
So at home, what would they do at home?
So really essentially all I'm doing, or essentially all anyone is doing is making syrup, is they're removing water and caramelizing sugars. You're removing water to get to 66.9% sugar, and you're caramelizing sugar so it tastes good. That's where you're getting your flavor from.
So
It doesn't
like
matter.
Caramelizing an onion, changing the flavor,
Exactly.
making it deeper and richer.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where you're getting your flavor from. So it doesn't matter how you get there. You can take a stock pot, put it in your stove, fill it full of sap, and boil it down until you get to 66.9% sugar, and you can make maple syrup. It's as simple as that, or it's as complicated as this, or even more complicated.
So one of the questions I can hear people saying is, how do I know when I get to 66% sugar? There must be some test that you do to know you're not at 80% or you're not at 40%.
Correct. So there's a couple different ways that we do that, and the initial way to do it that gives you a ballpark is based on temperature. So we can't measure the sugar while it's on the evaporator. All we can really measure is the temperature of it. Yes.
So how do you know when the temperature is correct?
So I have a thermometer probe that's right in my syrup pan, and that is monitoring. If you can watch your step right there. I need to shut my dampers off.
Oh, that's a nice fire.
Yeah.
So one would guess this unit up here is your
That's my temperature box.
temperature. Okay.
So the right hand readout is my syrup pan. So as you concentrate a liquid, the boiling point goes up.
Yeah.
Water boils at about 212 degrees.
Yep.
So syrup boils at about 7.2 degrees above the boiling point of water. So that gives us a ballpark. It doesn't give us an exact sugar reading, but tells us when we're at syrup. So what I'll do is, when I first start drawing off syrup, I'll start at say 219.5 degrees. That should give me at syrup or higher. As I'm drawing the syrup off,
Yeah. Yeah, I see it's boiling
it's starting to boil
vigorously
now.
here already. Yep. Now, what is that you just did?
What's that?
What is in the little bottle you have?
So that right there is defoamer.
It's what?
It's called defoamer.
Okay. Oh, defoamer. Okay.
Yes, and it's basically vegetable oil,
Yep.
and it keeps it from foaming too much.
Okay.
I'm actually going to open this valve up because I think I have syrup. I don't think it diluted that much.
So it looks like
See that syrup right there?
you're very used to looking at what the consistency of it
Yes.
on how rapidly it drips.
I'm looking how it's coming off. Right now it's
Yeah.
kind of drippy,
Yeah.
but see how it's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
starting to apron off? So I have syrup here, here, and here.
Yep.
So what I need to do is start thinning this out so that it doesn't get too far beyond syrup.
Oh, so this is final product coming off here?
That is
Or close to final?
It's close to final product. It's definitely not the final product.
Okay. So this coming off here, when you say it's definitely not the final product, what has to be done to it after it comes out of this pan?
So remember that the temperature only tells us when we're approximately at syrup. It doesn't tell us when we're exactly there. So now that my temperatures are coming down a little bit, so that's still syrup there, but at least it's flowing off. I'm trying to keep my temperature around 220 to 221.
Yep.
If it starts getting too high, it gets too thick and doesn't come off well. And then if it starts going higher than that, I'm going to start burning it. So I'm trying to monitor my temperature and monitor where I'm making syrup.
So you source all of your own sap.
It's called the apron test because it starts to come off as in an apron like that.
So how many taps have you got?
We have 891 taps this year.
891.
Yep.
Wow. And you're collecting, you said, 1,000 gallons a day?
Generally, yeah. It's generally on an average day between a gallon and a gallon and a half per tap.
So we're at March 24th.
Yes.
It's going to be cold, but this must be approaching the end of the season.
It is approaching.
Okay.
So generally, we tap trees about President's Day weekend, so middle of February. We'll make a little bit of syrup in February. We'll make, so say like 10 to 15% in February. We'll make 80% or so in March, and then if we're lucky, we'll make another 10 to 15% in April. So it looks like we're making it in April. Sunday night's supposed to be really cold.
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday, and I think Tuesday night are going to be cold again. So that should keep the trees from getting too excited and thinking it's springtime.
Because we, when we were looking at collecting the sap, I gathered that as the temperature gets warmer and you don't have those cold nights, you have both a reduction in the amount of flow and also that the sap itself can start to taste a little bit bitter.
Yes, so the sap that we're collecting is from when the trees are dormant. The trees are not using the sap right now. They're still in hibernation mode, or they're dormant. The trees, when they start using the sap is when their leaves, their leaf buds start popping out. And at that point, the chemical nature of the sap changes and it no longer makes good flavored syrup.
I've been looking at this thing.
This right here is called a filter press.
Oh,
And I can explain this to you as we're going to be filtering syrup, which we're not quite there yet. I can show you how to set it up as well.
Oh, so that is a step that it has to go through to get to the final product?
Yeah, so like I said, that right there, the temperature tells me when it's approximate syrup, but there's still other stuff we have to do after that.
Yeah, okay.
So right now, that first batch of syrup that I made is sitting in my draw tank. And I'm going to hold it there until I make some more syrup. I want to make 3 or 4 gallons to push through the filter press the first time. However, kegs are a great way to store syrup. They're stainless steel, so it maintains the quality of the syrup for long-term storage.
So these are actually full of finished product?
Yes, they are. So that is finished product ready to go.
Okay. So how long can you keep these?
A year, 2 years,
Wow,
3 years.
really?
Yep. Yep. So as long as it's packaged properly, it's at the right density, it's at the right temperature, it's in stainless steel, it really shouldn't go bad.
A thing I noticed over here by your products is this this sign about wood keg maple syrup.
Yes.
What's up with that?
A new thing we tried last year is barrel-aged maple syrup. So we're working with a guy in Madbury. It's New England Barrel Company. He is a bourbon and rye connoisseur, I call him, and he goes down to, Kentucky and Ohio and visits different distilleries, and he'll find different barrels of ryes and bourbons that he likes and that have unique qualities that he's looking for, and he has them shipped back up here and he bottles them, and and sells them in liquor
So
stores.
it sounds like he's using not brand new clean barrels. He's using barrels that have been used in the process that then the maple syrup interacts with the chemicals and the wood and imparts a different type of flavor to it, or
So
richer flavor?
he's selling the bourbon. So he's buying full barrels of bourbon and or rye and bringing them up
okay.
here.
Yep.
And then there's a bottling plant in Dover that bottles his syrup for him, or his alcohol for him. He then gives me the barrel, and I put the syrup in the barrel, and then we age it for 6 months, a year.
So you're looking at doing the same thing as they do with the bourbon, of having the product interact with the different tannins
Yes.
and everything in the wood.
Yes.
And some of the flavorings that were left from the bourbons. And,
Yes.
How about that?
So there's no alcohol in it, but it's picking up the flavor from
but
the
flavors,
barrel that are in the barrel itself,
Yeah.
plus the bourbon that was in the barrel. Those
Yeah.
flavors are all interacting and they're melding, and
Yeah.
and the syrup is picking those flavors up. So you have and this was a rye barrel that we used. So this is our first one that we've ever done. It actually just become available in the past week.
Can you notice a difference in the flavor?
Completely different.
Really?
Yeah, the flavor from this rye barrel, it worked very nicely with the maple flavor. It gave us some sweetness to it. The flavors are very well balanced. It was very nice. We just had our open house last weekend. We were giving out samples of it, and everybody just had nothing but nice things to say
really?
about it.
And something I've heard, and it looks as though this is probably a sample of it over here, is that the color that the final product is tells a lot about the flavor and the sugar content. What's up with that?
Well, the sugar content does not change. Syrup is syrup at 66.9.
Okay, so-
that is a standard we have to meet.
So you have to meet that from like the state to be called maple syrup, or?
Yes.
Okay, so whether it's light or dark, it's still the same sugar content.
Correct.
One would guess it has something to do with the caramelization or something.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
So it's a matter of the sugars that you're caramelizing and how much sugar you're caramelizing.
Because we had one of your samples, and the flavor was so much richer than, say, a log cabin or an off-the-shelf maple syrup from the grocery store. This
Yes.
was just like very, very full-bodied and very rich.
So that was
flavor.
a dark. That was a dark grade. So the 4 grades are amber rich. Oh, sorry, golden delicious, amber rich, dark, robust, and very dark strong. Those are the 4 grades.
Do the grades indicate quality, or are they
No.
just different flavor?
It's a way
impacts?
for us as the producer to tell you how strong of a flavor this maple syrup is
Okay.
going to have, because everybody likes a different
Yeah.
flavor intensity than somebody else.
So in a nutshell, it sounds like the darker, the more rich, robust
Yes.
flavor it's going to have. The lighter, it's going to have a lighter
delicate
flavor. Yep,
Exactly.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
So it's a way for us to be able to tell you how it's going to
Yeah.
taste. So you can look at it and say, oh, I want a light flavored syrup.
Okay.
I want,
So
I
it's
want
not
mild.
good, bad, better.
Nope.
Okay.
It's all
just-
personal preference.
All right. So we've collected. This is all from tonight so far.
Yes. That was that first draw that we did.
It looks like 5-gallon range, somewhere around.
This right here is 15 gallons
I
in
mean,
totals.
it looks like there's about 5 in there now, 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll wait, once I get another draw through in there, I'll run the filter press and I'll show you how the filter press works.
So I know in agricultural operations, when we're using these reverse osmosis, we have a ratios. Most of them are on like a 1-to-1 that you're losing 1 gallon. Sounds like these operate a little bit differently because you're just concentrating down. When we use a house or a commercial unit, you get 1 gallon of RO and 1 gallon of waste.
Yep.
And does this water just go to waste to drain? The
No,
water?
we actually, so the water we're removing, we put in a separate tank.
Yeah.
And we hold on to that as we collect it as we're processing the
Yep.
sap. And then at the end of the night, when we're done concentrating, we need to wash the RO machine out. because
Okay,
the membrane gets a biofilm
Yeah.
on
So
it.
you back flush.
You back
Yeah.
So you got to push the sugar out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sugar inside that membrane. Push that out first, and then we rinse the membrane out with 200 or 300 gallons of water.
Yeah.
Then we do a soap wash to clean it, and then we rinse all the soap water out with another whatever we have left.
Yeah. So
We-
you're using all of the drawn off water to clean.
Yes.
And re.
Yeah, we might push,
Reset.
800,000 gallons or 1,500 gallons of what we call permeate water
Yeah.
back. So we make concentrate and permeate.
Yeah.
That's our nomenclature.
So your big holding tank outside,
Yes.
at this time of year, how long can you hold sap in there before it starts to go bad? Like if you start getting warm days, it doesn't sound like you can hold that sap in there, that raw sap, for too long.
You can't, because there's bacteria in the sap.
Yeah.
Because there's bacteria in the air.
Yeah.
So the rule of thumb is treat maple sap like you would milk. You want to keep it cold.
Okay. Yep.
And you wouldn't store milk at room temperature.
Yep.
So when early season, when it's cold out, you can store sap for a day or two.
So it's pretty much a use it or lose it scenario.
It is. Yeah, you take the risk of, well, for one, the bacteria are eating your sugar, so you're losing
Yeah.
sugar,
Yep.
but they're also degrading the quality of the sap.
Yep.
However, there's a benefit to them too. So they are part of the reason why we make darker syrup. So might get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure maple trees produce sucrose. That is the sugar
Yeah.
that they produce. The bacteria, as they consume the sucrose, convert to other types of sugars, like fructose and invertose and other ones, glucose. Those sugars caramelize at a lower temperature.
Ah.
So, oops, sorry. So say I'm right and it is sucrose that the trees produce, those sugars caramelize at a temperature that we do not reach when we make syrup. So they don't caramelize, you make a light colored syrup.
Okay, all right.
The sugars that the bacteria
Yep.
convert to caramelize at a lower temperature. We're caramelizing those sugars.
Yep.
So we're making darker syrup. And surprisingly, it's a very, 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 very small percent of sugar that gets converted, but apparently it doesn't take much to have that effect on the color of the syrup, the finished
It's
color.
amazing when you actually start looking at the science of cooking in general.
Oh, it's fascinating.
How fascinating and complex something as simple as bread rising or meat cooking or making syrup is. There's so much chemistry and interaction between
Yep.
different processes.
Yeah, I find all aspects of sugaring
Yep.
fascinating,
Yeah.
and I enjoy learning about it and finding what's going on and how it works. And
Yep.
I think it's very interesting.
I like this very sweet maple smelling
Yes.
fog in here. It's a very interesting atmosphere. It just smells so nice in here. The maple syrup and it's almost otherworldly. You have a couple other tanks back here. What's this guy here?
So once it goes, right now that syrup, the 4 gallons of syrup that I made already,
Yep.
right now it's in my draw tank. So that's where the syrup gets drawn off to. I hold it there until I get a batch of syrup made. And what I do is you have to filter syrup. It has a mineral, sap has a mineral in it called sugar sand.
Sugar sand?
Sugar sand, it's sand.
Sugar sand.
It's in the sap, you can't see it because it's so diluted. But because we're reducing the volume by such an extent, you can see it. It's in suspension. It makes the syrup cloudy.
Sugar sand.
Yep.
Never heard of it. I'll be darned.
It is actually, so it's a mineral that the tree draws up.
Do I take it that relates to this piece of equipment here?
So yes, you have to filter that sugar sand out, otherwise it gives your syrup a cloudy, gritty texture. You can taste it, it affects the flavor of the syrup, and then over time it actually settles out and it creates a layer on the
So
bottom of it.
when it's in the syrup, is it actually in a microparticulate or is it in solution?
It's in solution.
So it's in solution that then comes out as part of the process, or?
Yes. Yes, let me get over there. Yep. So it's in suspension, you can see it. So the boiling point of water changes every day.
Yeah.
So you need to find out
With
at
the-
what
with-
temperature you're making syrup for the day.
With the atmospheric pressure.
With the
and
atmospheric
yeah, okay.
pressure, exactly.
So, all right, you just pulled out some.
So I want to make sure the hydrometer cup is nice and hot. So I fill it up and dump it out, and then I add some more in.
Okay.
So right now we're at about 219.4. So now you put this in and take a reading on it.
And what is that telling us?
So that right there is telling you, so hot off the evaporator, I'm looking for syrup at that red mark. Down at the level of syrup, I'd
Yep.
be at the right temperature. So
So-
that was at 219.4.
So are we actually measuring temperature with this?
No, we're measuring technically specific gravity.
Specific gravity, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So right now that's telling me that 219.4 is too high, the syrup is too thick. So I need, next time I'll draw it off at 219.0
Okay.
and get another
Yeah.
reading.
Now, does that mean you have to dilute this somehow?
Yes. So I always make sure that I draw off syrup a little bit heavy
Yeah.
because I can always add more water to dilute it and thin it out.
Straight water?
Straight water.
Straight water.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the easy way because if I draw it off too light,
Yeah,
then I
you
have to
can't-
boil it again
Yeah. Yeah.
and then have to refilter it again because you'll get more nitro will come out.
Yeah, okay. I saw these handles here. I had assumed those were for here, thinking that it was a manually operated, but it looks like you have a pump system. Are you actually forcing the
Yes,
product?
it's under pressure.
So it's a pressure forcing through this filter. And this is just to keep the, it looks like you could put more or fewer
yes.
stacks on. So these are just to keep it together as you apply the pressure so they don't blow the unit apart.
Yes. So it is under pressure.
Okay, all right.
And I'm going to set the filter press up now because now I'm ready for it.
What type of filter is this?
So these are the plates that will store the filter aid. And then I'm just watching my temperatures.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I gotta make sure it doesn't get too high. I'll take this out so you can see what I'm doing.
So you're taking the sugar sand out with this process.
Yes.
So do you get enough sand that you can do your driveway a couple times? Yeah,
No,
okay, all
not
right.
really.
I take it, the sand is of no usable value.
No. And it ends up being all mixed in with this filter aid that I use to help get it out.
Oh, so these are filter.
These are filter papers.
Are they single use? You run one
Single
batch
use.
and then out?
Single batch as in I'll use it for a night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to set the filter press up. So you put a paper down.
Yep.
Then this right here is a hollow plate.
Yep.
And I'll explain how this works as I'm setting it up. Another piece of paper. So a piece of paper goes in between each one of them. And now I have what I call a solid plate.
Yep. So there's no porosity to this at all.
No,
So it must do something about moving the or the motion of the liquid going through.
yeah, so the syrup is it goes
okay.
in this
Yep.
hole. So it gets pumped in the back of the filter
Yep.
press. And it goes in this hole.
Yep.
Then it enters the hollow plate through those holes right there.
Yeah.
See those holes? So
Oh,
now
yeah,
it can flow
yeah.
from this hole into this solid plate. Another paper.
So the pressure must get pretty high on this thing to actually drive it up through all of these filters.
Yeah, we're generally running it at about, I don't know, 50 pounds of pressure, 50
Okay.
psi. And then the pressure will get to a point, as the filter press becomes clogged with sugar sand, the pressures go up.
Yeah.
And then you eventually get to the point where you just can't force any more through and you got to change the papers. So then on this side, oh, I had that plate backwards. They only go on a certain way.
Yep. Yeah, that's our fault. We got you talking.
Yeah. See how there's a marking on the plate?
Oh yeah.
So all the markings go on
Yep.
that side. So that's actually how it gets out. It goes through those holes to get out. So this is the out, this
Yep.
is the in.
So
This is
gets.
Yeah, it'll make a little more sense.
Yeah.
So the syrup is coming in this hole,
Yep.
and then it goes into the hollow plate through this hole.
Yep.
So it goes in, and then it fills up this entire
Yep.
cavity, which ends up being filled with syrup. And then to get out of the press, it has to go through this white paper. But this white paper is actually a trap
Yep.
for what is doing the filtering. The white paper does not filter the syrup. We mix a powder, a white powder, into the syrup, and that is what's doing the filtering. That white powder is called diatomaceous earth.
Oh, so diatomaceous earth. So where does that go?
That's going to go in my draw-off tank.
So you put the diatomaceous earth in. It sounds like the sand somehow binds to the diatomaceous, because I know diatomaceous earth is used as a filtering agent.
Exactly.
itself.
Yes, and that's what it's doing. It's a really fine powder,
Yep.
and it on that. So the syrup goes into the inside the hollow plate,
Yep.
and it fills it up. And the only way you can get out of the press is to go through the white paper. Well, the white paper captures the DE on it. It creates a layer of
Yeah.
that DE on it.
And so that's what then acts as the filter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So the DE is actually what's doing all the filtering.
Yep.
The white paper is there just to capture
Yeah.
the DE.
Yep. All of the videos that I make for people, one of the things that always comes out is there's a lot of science in all of this stuff. You'd think, we just boil it down and what? It's a process, and
It is.
There's
It is.
chemistry and physics and
There's all that
hydraulics and everything involved in it. So I ask people to keep that in mind when they have their next thing of pancakes, of what a process actually
what really went
consists
into
of.
it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, a lot of equipment, a lot of knowledge on your part, and a lot of experience.
So now the filter press is set up, and I'm ready to start filtering.
So
syrup.
you're filtering hot product.
It needs to be hot because,
Oh, for the solution, and there must be some process of.
well, you want to filter it while it's hot because it's not as thick. So it goes through the filter press easier.
Okay.
So right now there's no DE in the press.
Okay, by this time I thought we must be done, but nope, I was wrong. Josh made multiple trips back and forth with cups of diatomaceous earth to pour into the draw pan. The filter kept running, and finally I went over, and lo and behold, here was some final filtered product coming out of the filter press and into the collection bucket. Josh then took the collection bucket and poured it into one of the finished tanks. I thought we were done, but nope, he rechecked the specific gravity a number of times, checked the Brix, which is a sugar level, and then I thought, okay, now we must be done. But there was one final important step. The whole process is
That's really
here.
different. Like that is the last step. Once it's the sugars, the density is corrected, it's graded. I find out what grade of syrup I made.
Yep.
It's in the canner. It's ready to go into retail containers.
So the final thing in this process is, do we get a little tiny taste
Oh,
to
you
see
sure
what it's?
do.
Oh, great! This has been amazing. I had no idea how complex and how precise this whole process was.
Yeah.
Oh.
Enjoy.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Boy, this process is a lot more complicated than I originally thought. Looks like we've been here so long tonight. The sun's come up. And I just want to tell you, this has been amazing. I've eaten or had maple syrup all my life, and never really seen how the process, and I've grown up in New Hampshire and New England. I've driven by sugar shacks and always appreciated maple syrup. But this has been fascinating. I was trained as a scientist, and I didn't really realize how much science is involved in this, the precision of the temperatures and the the barometric pressure. It's amazing. I will appreciate even more than before every time I have maple syrup. And for anybody that wants to just have a wonderful experience, I would suggest coming down and giving Josh a visit. Can you tell him just in a couple of sentences here how they access you, and can they come to see the operation, and if so, how they do that?
Sure. So we are at 761 Franklin Pierce Highway in Barrington, New Hampshire. It's right across the street from the fire department. You're welcome to come here during maple season and watch us boil. We generally boil at night and collect sap during the day. And you can always contact us at 603-828-6172 or at info@springharvestmaplefarm.com. We're also on Facebook, and we have a website, same name.
And we will post the contact info for Josh at the end of this video. And again, I cannot emphasize, you saw when we took some shots of that family that visited, the kids have fun, it's educational, and the smiles on their face when they taste this wonderful maple syrup. And we tasted this new product from Josh. Is this here?
The barrel right there. That's the very first batch of it.
Maple syrup aged in bourbon barrels?
In a rye barrel.
In a rye barrels, and it is, you have to come try it. It's amazing. So thanks so much, Josh. It's been a pleasure. And
really
again, you guys, you need to bring the family out and experience this wonderful New Hampshire, New England tradition. So as always, be good to each other, and remember, you need to know what your plants need to grow.